The transport ship horizons and broke through Xylo's atmosphere with a violent shudder that threw everyone against their restraints. Saracen held on to the armrest and watched through the window as purple clouds turned into landscape that looked like it was alive. The trees moved like waves. Bioluminescent waves pulsed through the mountains. All of it moved. Captain Rogers, we're seeing huge heat signatures all over the place, the pilot said, his voice shaking with fear. Captain Marcus Rogers stood at the front of the passenger bay. His face was calm, even though the air was full of tension. 247 colonists, the last desperate bet of humanity, stood behind him in silence. Listen up, said Marcus. His voice was calm. I won't tell you a lie. The three alien colonists that came before us are no longer here. Gone in a few weeks. The Centauri had energy shields that could stop plasma fire. The Krill built structures that were harder than diamond. The Orcs had weapons that could destroy mountains. He stopped for a moment to let that sink in. None of them worked. A young man named David Park spoke up from the back. Why are we here then? Marcus smiled sadly. Because we are doing something new, something that those advanced alien civilizations never thought of. We won't fight Xylos. We are going to join in. The ship landed in a clearing next to a river that glowed a faint blue in the fading light. As soon as the doors opened, they smelled it, rich, organic, and alive. It wasn't bad, it was just too much. Every smell had a message, a warning, or an invitation. Stay together, Marcus told them. Go as a group, no action by individuals. They walked out onto the land that was not theirs. The ground felt strange under their feet, like it had a pulse and was little springy. In the distance, something roared, and the sound was so deep that it made their chest vibrate. Emma Torres, the colony's head biologist, started looking around right away. Her tools lit up like a Christmas tree. Captain, I can see 17 different apex predator species within a 5-mile radius. No, wait, 23. Everywhere they are. Expected, Marcus said. He turned to talk to everyone. Think about what you learned in the training. We only work together as a community. Everyone here has a job to do. Every job is important. We either live together or not at all. As night fell on their first day, they huddled together in a temporary shelter. It wasn't a fortress, it was just a simple building that fit in with the surrounding. They could see shapes moving in the dark through the see through walls. Large shapes, quick shapes. Sarah was sitting next to an old woman named Grace Murphy. Grace Murphy used to be a social psychologist on Earth. Are you afraid? Sarah said in a low voice. Grace nodded slowly, scared, but also interested. There is one thing that Marcus is right about. All the species that came before us tried to take over this world. Maybe it's time for someone else to try to figure it out. Three creatures came up to their shelter that night. Emma Scanner told her that they were razorbacks, 6-legged predators with spines and jaws that could crush steel. They were all the size of small truck. The colonists were frozen. Marcus slowly raised his hand. Don't move. No one says anything. We are not prey. We are not danger. We're just here. For 20 long minutes, the razorbacks circled the shelter. 6 eyes on each creature reflected the light of the moon like mirrors. They sniffed the air, looking very confused. The structure didn't smell like food or other predators. It smelled like the forest around them, like it was part of the ecosystem. Finally, the razorbacks left, fading into the night. Phase 1 is done, Marcus said softly. We didn't set off their hunt response. That's a good start. They had set up a basic camp by the third day, but they were quickly realizing how bad their situation was. They couldn't stay in the landing zone for long. They had to spread out, get resources, and make a long term home. But how do you make anything when death is always nearby? Emma brought the leadership team together in the command tent. She showed holographic pictures of the ruins of the colonies that had come before. I've been looking at the ruins of this entire settlement, she said. Their energy shields were perfect. They were walls that nothing could get through. But check this out. She zoomed in one of the claw marks that were all around the edge. This shield made a clear line between the inside and the outside. Every predator on Xylos interpreted that as terrestrial aggression. They didn't try to get food by breaking in because the shields were hard to get through. They tried to break through. Marcus leaned in. They turned defense into provocation. Exactly. The Grill also messed up their fortress design in the same way. They built structures designed to withstand assault, which meant into provocation, which meant every predator saw them as rival alpha predators. Within a few days, the whole fortress was under attack all the time. The Grill never ran out of the bullets. They just ran out of sleep. Even if the predators hadn't killed them, the stress would have. David Park, who had become the colony's resource coordinator, pulled up another picture. And the Orcs? Emma's face grew dark. The Orcs thought that having a lot of firepower was the best thing. They killed anything that got too close. It worked for a week. After that, the ecosystem changed. Xylos isn't just a bunch of dangerous animals, it's a web that connects them all. When the Orcs messed up that web, all the predators band together to hunt. They planned their attacks together. A group of creatures that usually fight each other killed all the Orcs in one night. The tent was quiet. Grace spoke in a soft voice. So fortifications make you a target. Having weapons make you an enemy. What's left? Camouflage? Asked Tom Wright, their engineer. Marcus shook his head. Not hiding, joining in. We don't run away from the ecosystem. We become a part of it, David said. That sounds like a death wish. Maybe, Marcus said. But it's the only plan we haven't tried yet. And it's the only one thing that people are really good at adapting, fitting in, and finding our own place in the system that are already there. They started using what Marcus called the symbiotic protocol over the next few weeks. It began with watching. Three-person teams would go short distance from camp, always staying in sight of each other and moving in the same way. They saw how animals that were prey moved through the lost woods. They looked at how the predators hunted. They made maps of their territories. And when they ate, Dr. Raj Patel, a chemist, was in charge of the scent team that Sarah joined. Their job was to figure out what the chemical signals in the xylose air meant. Everything here talks through smell, Raj said as he looked at air samples with his tools. This compound means I'm hunting, and this one means this territory is mine. This mix means I'm not food, I'm poisonous. Can we copy these signals? Sarah asked. Raj smiled. That's exactly what we're going to learn how to do. At the same time, Emma's biology team found something interesting. Xylos prey species survived by working together. They had seen groups of animals called striped runners. They were fast and agile, but each one was weak on its own. But they thrived even though they were surrounded by predators. Look at this, Emma said, as she showed Marcus the video. A group of predators came up to a herd of striped runners. The herd quickly formed a specific pattern. They didn't run away. Instead, they made a moving formation. that made it hard for the predators to see how deep they were. Some runners would move quickly like predators, making it look like there was a lot of them. Others would let out certain combinations of smells. The predators couldn't find a single target and were confused by the mixed signals, so they gave up and moved on. Emma said, "They don't fight, they don't hide. They work together so well that it's not worth the trouble to hunt them down." Marcus watched the video 3 times. "That's how we do it. That's exactly what we need to do." Action started right away, but it needed something that had never been done before: complete trust and total specialization. Marcus stood in front of the whole colony in what they now called the gathering circle. It was an open space where everyone could see everyone else. He said, "This is how this works. Everyone gets a job based on what they can do and what the colony needs. But these jobs aren't normal. Your job is very important for the survival. If you fail, we all die. We all live if you succeed. No one can survive here on their own. We're making something that aliens never understood: total dependence on each other." He pointed at Raj and his group. "Scent weavers. You'll make chemical markers that let predators know we're part of the ecosystem and not intruders. You'll mark our path, our building, and our people." Raj nodded, knowing how heavy that duty was. Marcus kept going, pointing to different groups. "Movement coordinators. You'll teach us to move like a herd, in a way that makes it hard for predator to follow us. Communication specialist. You'll make sure that our alert systems work and that information gets to everyone in the colony right away. Resource gatherers. You'll learn when predators eat and only take what we need when it's safe." Lisa Chen, a woman, raised her hand. "What about defense? What do we do when someone does attack us?" "Artists who copy," Marcus said. "That's your group. You learn how to copy the threat display and the terrestrial signals of the predators by studying how they act. You will make us look dangerous when we aren't." The colony changed over the next few weeks. They didn't put up any walls or barriers. Instead, they built floor structures, which are buildings made to fit in with Xylo's natural architecture. They used materials that smelled like the area and were shaped to fit the natural curves of the plants. Sarah's scent weaver team worked 18-hour days, developing chemical compounds that could be worn on clothing or sprayed in air. They made smells that said, "We belong here. We're not food, and this territory is shared." The first real test came when a huge predator, called a blade serpent, which was 30 feet long and had muscle scales and razor sharp teeth, came into the colony's meeting area. Everyone stopped. Tom Wright, who is now a senior movement coordinator, slowly raised his hand. 20 colonists followed his lead and moved in a certain way around the serpent, making a living corridor that let the creature move through their space without getting stuck. The scent weavers turned on their compounds. All of a sudden, the air was full of chemical signals that said, "No threat, no prey, shared place." The blade serpent stopped and looked at the people with all of its eyes. It tasted the air with its forked tongue. Then, strangely, it kept moving through the colony, treating the people like trees, rocks, just the part of the landscape. Everyone let out a breath they had been holding when it went back into the woods. "It worked," Emma said in a low voice, her eyes full of tears. "It really worked." 3 weeks later, a pack of razorbacks, the same kind that had circled their shelter on the first night, set up a territory that crossed with the colony's areas for gathering resources. This was the real test. In the past, people would have to move or fight, but the colony picked a third way. Grace Murphy, a psychologist, had been working on something she called the vulnerability protocol. She told a group of volunteers about it. Predators hunt when they smell weakness that they can take advantage of quickly. But if weakness is expected, normal, and a part of environment, it doesn't make people want to hunt. We're going to let the Razorbacks know that we're weak on purpose, that we're not trying to hide it, and that we are not worth the effort to hunt. They walked slowly and openly in groups of 10 toward the Razorback area. They didn't move quickly. They didn't have any weapons. They wore scent compounds that told other animals low value prey, high effort hunt. They were watched by the Razorbacks. The people started picking edible plants from the edge of the territory, moving in a steady rhythmic way. When the Razorbacks came near, they didn't run away. They didn't stop moving because they were scared. They just kept working, knowing that the predators were there, but not doing anything about it. After 3 days of this, something amazing happened. The Razorbacks stopped paying attention to them. The colony had grown into something unique in the galaxy 6 months after they settled there. A human community that worked more like a superorganism than a group of people. Sarah and her scent weaver team were in the chemistry lab. The building was made of woven native vines and organic compounds, which made it almost impossible to see from 10 feet away. David Park came in quickly while she was mixing a new batch of shared space markers. He said quickly, "We have a problem. Two apex predators are fighting over territory, which is putting the northern fruit groves, where we've been carefully building relationships, at risk. If they fight there, we won't be able to get food." This is exactly what would have happened to the alien colonies. The Zenthari would have turned on their defensive shields and made themselves target. The Krill would have made things stronger and more aggressive. The Orcs would have attacked both predators and caused the ecosystem to fight back. Marcus called an urgent meeting of the community. All 247 colonists were standing in the circle in less than 15 minutes. Options, Marcus said simply. Emma was the first to speak. Spinestalkers and thunderhorns are the names of the predators. Competitors in nature. Both of them are terrestrial. Neither will back down from a direct challenge, Grace said. So we don't challenge them. We mediate. How do you mediate between creatures that would kill us right away? David asked. Tom Rith stepped up. How about we make a distraction? Not an attack, but a better chance somewhere else. We have been marking where resources are. What if we use scent trials and movement patterns to help them find better place to live? Raj nodded with excitement. We put down scent markers that make it look like there are a lot of prey in opposite direction. This would make it seem like it's not worth it to stay and fight when there are better places to hunt. And, said Lisa Chen, who had become a master mimic artist, we could have teams make fake predator signals in those directions that make it seem like there might be less competition than in the area where there is a dispute. It was dangerous. It needed perfect timing and coordination. But they had something that the alien colonies never had: complete faith in the roles of each other. They followed through with the plan over the course of 3 days. Scent weavers teams made a chemical trials that led away from the groove, which made it look like animals were moving. Movement coordinator teams set up in a way that made visual patterns that looked like herds moving in those directions. Mimic artists made terrestrial markers from other predator species, which made it look like the area they were fighting over was getting crowded, while other areas were opening up. The whole colony held its breath. On the third day, the spine stalker followed the scent trails north and found The valley they had been looking for that was full of prey. The Thunderhorn moved its territory east because of the fake terrestrial markers and movement patterns. The fruit trees were not harmed. That night, the colony didn't celebrate with noise, which would have been dangerous. Instead, they all sat close together in the gathering circle and shared a meal, knowing that their survival was more tightly woven than any fabric. Grace got up to talk. I've been looking at us and how we've changed over the past few months. We used to stay on Earth. No man is an island. Our ancestors would have thought it was impossible to get to this point. We live in a world where it's literally impossible for one person to survive on its own. Your life depends on trusting people you've known for less than a year with everything. She stopped and looked at the faces around her. The alien colonies failed because they didn't want to be part of Xylos. They put up walls physical, technological, and mental, but barriers make it us against them. And in a world of death, them always wins. We've done something very different. We got rid of them. Us is the only thing that exists, and us includes the whole ecosystem. Sarah's cheeks were wet with tears. She had never felt so weak before. There were predators all around her that could kill her in a matter of seconds. She didn't have any weapon, armor, or a fort. Chemical compounds, synchronized movements, and faith that 246 other people would do their jobs perfectly were the only thing that could save her life. But she had never felt safer. Earth's psychologist would have said that the colonist metal state was unlike anything they had seen before by the eighth month. In her reports, Dr. Grace Murphy wrote down a lot of details about what she saw. She told her recorder, traditional survival psychology teaches fight, flight, or freeze responses to danger. But we have come up with a fourth response, integrate. Our fear and threat processing has changed because we are always near apex predators and need the help of others in the community. She watched as a group of kids, the youngest colonists, played in the circle where everyone was gathering a shadow cat, a lion sized predator with six eyes, and the ability to hide in plain sight, was resting in the shade nearby. The kids looked at it from time to time, but they didn't seem any more worried than if it were a big dog. That should have scared you. It was proof of adaptation, not the other way around. Grace went on to say, the kids who are born or raised here will think differently than people on Earth. They are developing what I called ecosystem consciousness, which is an intuitive understanding of their place in a complicated web of relationships, instead of hierarchical views of humanity above nature. But this change came with its own set of problems. At a meeting to hand out supplies, Marcus was the first to notice. David Park had found a stash of preserved earth food in storage. These were comfort food, treats, and things that made people feel at home. David said, I think we should be careful about how we ration these. One package per person, per month, to keep spirits high. Tom Wright shook his head firmly. No, food is for everyone. That's the way things are done. Giving each person their own rations make them think for themselves. We can't pay for that, David said. These are just snacks, his voice getting more and more angry. Not food for survival. People should be able to enjoy small things. The argument got worse. People joined in. The argument got heated. At last, Marcus raised his hand. David, do you remember the vulnerability protocol? David blinked. Of course. But was the main idea, David said. We should act like we are fully part of the ecosystem, with no hidden resources or ways to think or survive on your own. And how does that affect our community? David stopped talking, and his face showed that he understood. Grace spoke softly. The rules that kept us alive outside also work inside. When we say mine instead of ours, we stop thinking as a group and start thinking as individuals. That change in your mind is deadly here. The Razorbacks can tell when someone is paying attention or not. We won't be able to act together if we don't really agree on what we think. Our moment patterns will show this. David nods his head slowly. You're right. I'm sorry. Give everything out evenly. No personal stashes, no individual treats. It looked like a little thing, but it meant a lot. The colonists were learning that they needed to change their mind as well as their behavior in order to survive on Zalos. They were changing into something new, not quite a hive mind, but a community where everyone's needs were more important than their own. This became clear during what they called the meditation crisis. James Parker, a colonist, had been having a hard time. Before Xylos, he was an engineer who linked to be alone and have his own place. He was being crushed by always being with other people and never being able to be alone. He told Grace during a counseling session, I just need an hour. 1 hour when I'm not acting, not working with others, and not being watched by the predators. Just silence. Alone. Grace understood. People needed time to stay mentally healthy, but on Zalos, being alone meant death. She talked about the problem at the community meeting. James need to be alone. But that's not possible here, she said. How can we help him without breaking the rules that keep us alive? Sarah came up with an answer. What if we use ritual to make mental solitude? Everyone agrees to give James 1 hour in which we are physically there, but not mentally there. We stay where we are, keep an eye out for predators, but we don't talk to him, acknowledge him, or interact with him. He feels like he's alone, but he isn't really alone. They gave it a shot. James sat in the middle of the circle of people, and the others stayed in their roles, quiet and present, but not interacting. The predators still thought they were all together. The ecosystem still knew how the colonies lived. But James finally got some peace. It worked so well that it became a habit. Anyone could ask for solitude hours, and the community would make it seem like they were alone, while they were still being safe with others.